Hello, hello, DM Geezer Jim here to continue reading along Chapter 8, Bastions. We are in our 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, RTFM, Read the Frickin' Manual. In this case, I'm reading it out loud. We are doing an audiobook. We are almost done with it. Chapter 8, Bastions. I have certain feels about this. I'm going to do my best to provide useful commentary. We could go critical all day long. I'm not a fan of the Bastions. I'm not a fan of the implementations or the power curve, the economic disruption. There's a few other things that can come with Bastions. But rather than spending a bunch of time talking bad about the Bastions, let's read what the book says, and we can talk about how to implement things and cautious and discuss some of the things that you need to be cautious about should you implement Bastions in your campaign worlds. So, as usual, the first part will be me reading, and the second part will be some commentary. I'll probably pause here and there as we go. But let's get to it, man. Let's finish this sucker up. Chapter 8, Bastions, 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. All right. A bastion is a location that belongs to a player character, a home, a stronghold, and a place of power that the character develops over the course of a campaign. A bastion offers a character temporary refuge from the dangerous world of adventuring, and it provides opportunities for a character to craft magic items, conduct research, harvest poisons, build ships, and carry out a range of other activities. As DM, you decide whether bastions are available in a campaign. Bastions are best suited to campaigns that allow characters to return to their bastions during intervals when they're not actively adventuring. Not every character needs to have a bastion. It's fine for some players in your campaign to opt into bastion ownerships and others to opt out of it. There's no need to choose between going on adventures and commanding a bastion. A character can do both at once. A bastion has special facilities that generate benefits, and these facilities can also undertake projects while their character is otherwise occupied. Most importantly, a bastion is a creative playground for a player in a shared storytelling space in the campaign. Be as permissive as you can with the stories players tell in their bastions, but players should know their control might be limited by the campaign's larger story, which you, the GM, strive to make fun for everyone. Gaining a bastion. If you allow bastions in your campaigns, characters acquire their bastions when they reach level 5. You and the players can decide together how these bastions came into being. A character might inherit or receive a parcel of land on which to build their bastion, see Marks of Prestige in Chapter 3, or they might take a pre-existing structure and refurbish it. It's fair to assume that work has been going on behind the scenes of the campaign during a character's early adventuring career, so the bastion is ready for them when they reach character level 5. The shape, style, and function of a character's bastions are up to the player to determine. For example, a wizard might build a tower, a cleric might establish a shrine, a fighter might build a fortified keep or a similar stronghold, and a rogue might establish a guild hall or a lodge. Characters of other classes might choose one of these forms or combine them. A paladin's bastion might be similar to a cleric's shrine, but as fortified as a fighter's stronghold. And multiple characters can combine their bastions to form a single large structure. See the bastion map. See the section on bastion map. Every bastion has facilities that serve basic needs as well as special ones, such as libraries, menageries, and workshops. See basic facilities and specialist facilities later in the chapter. Bastion turns. As time passes in the campaign, players take bastion turns to reflect the activity occurring in their bastions, whether or not the characters are present. On a bastion turn, a character can issue orders to the special facilities in their bastion or issue the maintain order to the entire bastion. See the section on orders. Next section is frequency of bastion turns. By default, a bastion turn occurs every 7 days of in-game time. Here are common examples of players taking one or more bastion turns. The first example, the characters are on a long journey away from their bastions. After the characters have been away for 7 days, you might say, time for a bastion turn. Since you're not there, we'll assume you issue the maintain order for your bastions. Then you'll roll the events as described in the bastion events section in this chapter. The second example is the character spends 7 days or more in their bastions between adventures. You might say you have 6 weeks to spend in your bastions. Go ahead and resolve 6 bastion turns. The characters return to their bastions in the midst of an adventure. You might say you have just enough time to take a bastion turn before you leave again in the morning. And the last example says the characters are adventuring near their bastions and resting in their bastions at night. You might say it's been a week since your last bastion turn, so you can take one now. You can slow the frequency of Bastion turns to better serve the needs of your players and your campaigns. For example, if the characters have months between adventures, you could call for a Bastion turn every month instead of every 7 days, so the characters aren't issuing so many orders or reaping too many benefits at once. And the last thing we're going to look at here is going to be the Bastion maps and the facility space, and then we'll stop for some commentary here. So, Bastion map. Encourage players to create floor plans of their character's bastions, configuring its facilities as they see fit, and using the same techniques you use to create dungeon maps. See the dungeons in Chapter 3 and adventure maps in Chapter 4. 5-foot grid square maps are ideal. In addition to basic and special facilities, which are described later in this chapter, a bastion can have the following features. Closets. A basic or special facility can have one or more closets, washrooms, or similar enclosures. The closets must be inside the facility and cannot increase a facility's areas in squares. These features are free. Corridors, ramps, and staircases. A facility can contain one or more corridors, ramps, or staircases leading to other facilities within the bastion. These features are free. Defensive walls. A character can add defensive walls around their bastion. A defensive wall is 20 feet high and may include a walkway along its top with the means to access it, such as a ladder or lift. Each 5-foot square of defensive wall takes 10 days to build and costs 250 gold pieces. If a character's bastion is completely enclosed by defensive walls and it comes under attack, reduce by 2 the number of dice rolled to determine how many bastion defenders are lost in the attack. Doors and windows. Each facility comes with one or more doors and shuttered windows placed wherever the players see fit. See the doors in Chapter 3 for the kind of doors to choose from, including locked doors, secret doors, and portcullises. These features are also free. The last section we'll look at here is going to be combining bastions. 2 or more players can combine their bastions into a single structure. Doing so doesn't change the number of special facilities each bastion can have, how those facilities work, or who issues orders to each bastion. Each bastion retains its own hirelings, which can't be sent or shared with another bastion. Bastion defenders are handled differently, and if some event deprives one character's bastions of defenders, another character can apply all or some of their losses to their bastion instead, provided the 2 bastions are combined. And we're going to stop our reading here. We're going to talk for a couple minutes about the implementation of the first part that we've read here. If you're here for the read along, appreciate you being here. You can push that stop button. Come back for the next section of our video soon. We're going to get into some commentary here. So the first thing that I want to point out, again, I'm going to try to minimize my personal opinion on the existence of these and provide useful information, even if I don't agree with what I'm saying. First and foremost, the idea behind a bastion is if you are going to implement them, first and foremost, as a DM, you decide whether they are available in a campaign. They are best suited to campaigns that allow characters to return to their bastions during intervals when they're not actively adventuring. So this is a long-term, long-build, slow burn campaign. You don't necessarily want to use bastions for something like Tomb of Annihilation, where your characters have traveled to the peninsula of Ch8 and they're on a timeline. They have to finish this campaign before X amount of days expire, otherwise it fails. Those campaigns probably do not have space for a bastion. Any campaign that is a fast-moving pace, requires tons of travel, or will keep your characters moving around a lot, are not ideal for a bastion. Descent into Avernus. Your players are leaving Toril and they're headed to the plains of Avernus, the first layer of the 9 hells. They're never going home to do a bastion turn. So yeah, that's the first thing. Make sure that your campaign pace, story, and theme will support bastions before you even consider putting them in there. Fast-moving campaign, saving the world, probably not a lot of time to go home and make potions and build magic items for a week. That's the first thing that we want to talk about, okay? The second thing is the idea is that the book says they're going to acquire their bastion when they reach level 5. So the thing that kind of bothers me is it's fair to assume that work has been going on behind the scenes of a campaign during a character's early adventuring career, so the bastion is ready. So, you know, the book is positing that at level 5, your characters are going to get this cool bastion. Someone's been giving them the land, building it, and working on it, providing the resources for this bastion to be built. So when they turn level 5, ding, they get this building. You need to, as a dungeon master, in my opinion, if you want it to be believable, immersive, and feel like they actually own it, put some work in the foreground, in the background. Make sure that you've established somewhere in the storyline when and where they're getting their bastions. It shouldn't just be, oh shit, you're level 5, I guess you get a house now. That's going to, in my opinion, reduce the value of the property, reduce the impact that's going to have on your campaign to something negligible. If you want your players to have ownership of something, they should be vested in it. So definitely, if you want to do the buy level 5, make the setup of the Bastion, the acquisition of the Bastion, part of gameplay. It shouldn't be a surprise, hey, congratulations, level 5, here's your keep. That's my opinion on there. So the Bastion turns thing, the first thing I want to talk about is the idea that if you need them to take longer, take them longer. If it needs to be 30 days, give it 30 days. But this falls back into your campaign plot and campaign plan. If your game world, if your game, your campaign is such a slow burn that you have the time, then definitely give them a month on Bastion turns, because it's going to slow down the acquisition of goods. Your players can make a lot of money with the Bastion. We'll get into that when we get to the special facilities and events and all of that. So before we go any longer, obviously the Bastion maps, the cost of building is not included in here. These Bastions spring to life without any expense to your players on day one. I don't like that, but if you do, then you be you. Ultimately, make sure that you're planning for the appearance of a Bastion or the construction of a Bastion to line up with your world's economy. Bastions can generate like 5,000 gold per week later on, much later, but they literally can generate 5,000 gold pieces per week for a Bastion turn. What does that do to your campaign? What does that do to your campaign world? Be aware of that as you start implementing these things. But we're going to go ahead and stop the video there. We'll come back for our next read through. We're going to look at facility space and basic facilities, talking about the design of the Bastion itself. Thanks so much for hanging out. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. If you really want to get into some debates on Bastions, join us over on Twitch, man. I'll throw down anytime. I have lots of feels about this. I don't want to corrupt my video presentation with how I feel about it. I'm more than happy to have discussions with you guys. So, hey, appreciate your time. Likes, follows, subscribes, all those cool things. Feel free to leave some comments. But, yeah, that's the first part of Chapter 8, the Bastions. Thank you for hanging out, and we'll continue on soon. See you soon.